Shalom. All praises to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Ukakadash. Double honors to the apostles. Shalom to the elect out there, to the men and women of the elect. I want to say shalom. This is your brother Bishop Ayathun back at you with another video. And in this video, I want to bring out some information because Spirit had me look deeper into why in 1 Corinthians 11 chapter, Paul said not to prophesy or pray with your head covered. Now that is something that we have always followed because we honor the writings of Paul and we do recognize them as authoritative writings. And we know that Paul, Yahweh Shai dealt with Paul on a one-on-one basis. Yahweh Shai appeared to Paul. We know that the mysteries of the New Testament, of the elect, of reincarnation, the Gentiles, many mysteries, we understand them through the writings of Paul. And Paul's writings are mystery. Many people wrestle with them. Many people cannot understand them. And the new versions of the Bible you have now, there's an endless amount of versions now. New Living Translation, the New Word. And these are aimed at making the Gospels easier to read. But still, people read these scriptures, in the New Testament run by Paul and written by the other apostles. And they wrestle, but especially with Paul's. And one of the main things that they stumble over is the Gentile issue. And Paul went deep into the Gentile issue. But so in this lesson specifically, I was looking into why did Paul say a man should not have his head covered. And the reason is because it goes back to a pagan ritual practice by the Romans, which really goes back to the Greeks. And it's called, in the Latin, this practice is called, let me bring it up. It's called capite velato. Capite velato. Let me play it.
Capite velato.
Capite velato. Capite velato. Trying to get my apostle bar spirit. Capite velato. Let me play it again.
Capite velato.
Capite velato.
Capite velato.
Okay, and what does that mean? Capite velato. In Latin, there is a phrase, capite velato, meaning literally with head covered. The term is used in Roman religious context to refer to the act of covering the head with a veil when performing sacrifices. Now, we know the Romans did not perform sacrifices to Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. They performed sacrifices to the many pagan idols that they worship. Now, this here, what I had on the screen initially, this is Augustus Caesar, and he has his head covered. And I'm going to go to another article. And he has his head covered because in his statue is depicting him getting ready to perform a ritual. And this practice of having the head covered was performed mainly performed by high people of high status, or people in the what's the word I'm looking for? People in the politics, or if you were Caesar. People with high status, this would denote the person of having a high status, and they would perform the ritual. And whatever priest was performing the ritual was required to have their head covered. Almost looks like a hoodie. So what they would do is they would take their toga and they would pull it over their head. So let's look a little bit deeper into this. So let's play this again, the pronunciation.
Capite velato.
Capite velato. And again, it's a Latin phrase meaning literally with head covered. The term is used in Roman religious context to refer to the act of covering the head with a veil when performing sacrifices. So you go here. Now, this is from Wikipedia. When offering sacrifices, libation, and prayer, and when performing augury. What's augury? Witchcraft. When a president comes into office, he's what? He's inaugurated. Inaugurated refers to witchcraft. So when offering sacrifice, libation, and prayer, and when performing augury, the officiant priest, or in other words, a chief high priest, covered his head with a fold of his toga drawn up from the back. The ritual was thus performed capite velato, with head covered. Now, if we go to images, there's a bunch of images here. Now, if you look up capite and you put in the name of a Caesar, you could find all the Caesars. Let me try it now. Capite, Caesar. So I did a search earlier and I had a whole bunch of Caesars with their head covered. So you can look it up on your own. But at least let's keep going with the lesson. Excuse me. So if you look up that term, capite velato, you're going to find a whole bunch of information on it. You know, there's endless amounts of information out there. So that's a term you need to search if you want to find out the ritual of having your head covered. And you could go all into why Paul said not to do it. And this is why you need to recognize Paul as an authoritative figure, because Paul, now, when Yahushua was on the scene, when he was born, the Roman Empire, they say was about 50 to 80, they say about 3 decades old. So by the time Yahushua was an adult, you know, it was a little over 100 years old. And then, you know, Paul and the apostles, you know, after Yahushua was crucified, you know, that was even a little bit later than that. But the point I'm trying to make is that you had the heavy influence from the Greek Empire, and Paul was battling those Hellenist customs, the Greek customs. So this is why it's important to read Paul's writings and to take heed to his words, because Paul is speaking in context. You got to understand the context. Paul was in the midst of heavy witchcraft, heavy idolatry, heavy Hellenistic customs. So this is why Paul said the things that he said, because people during that time, Jakes, and Paul's commandment not to pray with the head covered is in Corinthians, which is in Greece. So that was in the Mecca of the Hellenists. So and now, especially as I mentioned, it was elite officials, you know, people of high stature that especially performed this custom. So all the Jakes, they copied it. They copied it. So it was a highly influential custom. So that's why Paul spoke so strongly against it. So if you read this here, this is from generationword.com. I'm just going to go straight to the point, but this goes all into 2 Corinthians 11. But 11:4, the men were not improperly wearing their hair, but the women were. The men are used as an example to contrast the woman. Let me make this bigger. Man is created in the image of the Most High. The face or head of a man is to reflect the glory of Yahushua. To cover the head of a man is to cover the part that is to reflect Yahushua. And that is what we always tell brothers. You don't cover your head, because that's where your spirit lies. So this is why Paul said, do not cover your head. In Roman religious culture, we're right here, the covering of a man's head was the capite velato, or capite velato. A statue of Augustus found at Corinth shows the emperor with his head covered. So do you see why Paul, in the book of Corinthians, he said, do not pray with your head covered? Because right there was, I got it here somewhere. Hold on. Oh, I'm going to go through this article in a minute, but let me go straight to the point. Now, here it is. Here's that's Augustus. So here's the statue. He's got his head covered, right? Now, the arms are broken off. So And one of the arms is supposed to be a bowl. It's a bowl that they use for sacrifice, but it's broken off in the statue. If we read the caption here, it says, Caesar Augustus Pontus Maximus. This is the emperor Augustus attired as capite velato, since he is participating in a religious ceremony. Missing from his right hand was the bowl used in religious ceremonies. The term for this bowl, fiale, is found about a dozen times in the book of Revelations. So there's this commenter here. Now, these articles that I'm reading, these are all scholars. You could look these guys up, all right? And then they have all the reference books at the bottom of each of these articles that I'm reading, with these scholarly reference. And like I said in my last video, I said you don't see real scholars come against us on anything that we teach, because what we're teaching is correct. The main people that come against our teachings are emotional jakes that are emotional. So they come against us. So this is why we don't waste our time debating, because it's just like a woman. You can't convince a woman to believe the truth. She's going to believe whatever her feelings tell her is real. Her feelings are her reality. So unfortunately, you got a lot of Israelites, even those in a faith, that are ruled by their feelings. So if their feelings don't agree with the text, they're going to say, hey, the text is wrong. Or they're going to get angry with you. So what's the point of debating somebody like that? You will look like a fool, like debating a woman or getting in a fight with a woman. You look like a fool. So anyway, so it says Paul is not telling everyone to wear a head covering when they're in a worship service. He's talking about the men and women who are doing the praying and prophesying. Well, we say that whether you're prophesying, praying, or if you're receiving a blessing or something like that, you should have your head covered. If you want the Spirit of the Lord to deal with you, you uncover your head. When you're prophesying, when you're praying, when you're receiving a blessing, when you're listening to the word. He's talking about the men and women who are doing the praying and prophesying, and that's what you see in the statuary coins and phrases. Right, so in other words, if you're not prophesying, if you're not teaching, if you're not receiving a blessing, an anointing, you can walk around with your head covered. You can wear a cap if you're going out, going to the whatever, going shopping, going out with your woman. You can wear a hat. If it's cold outside, you could throw a scully on or whatever. But if you're praying or prophesying, you're supposed to take it off. It says here, it's the people who are specifically involved in those acts of worship who are covered. It demonstrates submissiveness, respect, and awe in the presence of the deity. In our case, is Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. This was pervasive throughout the entire Roman Empire. So this was a wide practice. Like I said, it stemmed from the Greeks, and this is why we saw the statue of Augustus right in Corinth. And Paul mentioned that in the book of Corinthians. All right, so let me scroll back up on this page and check this out. So look right here. The Corinthian assemblies were made up of believers from different cultural backgrounds. Roman Christians and non-Roman Christians brought different head covering customs into the early church. So like I said, it was a bunch of bugged out jakes, So I'm going to scroll down because I want y'all to see something. Put simply, Paul required the men not to cover their heads when they spoke in the assembly. So I don't understand what's so difficult to understand. All right, so check this out here. Now, this is a bas relief from the Ark of Marcus Aurelius showing sacrifice. In this image, Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, remember I said earlier, you could search all the Caesars, they all do it, is wearing a head covering while engaging in a religious ritual, the offering of a sacrifice. Note that the others present are not wearing a head covering, only the one who is actively involved in the offering wears a veil, right? So if you're performing a service, if you're praying, If you're an Israelite and you're following the laws, if you're following Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, you're not to cover your head. That is a practice of the heathen, of the pagans. And as you can see here, he's got his head covered, right? You see that right there? He's got his head covered because he's performing a sacrifice. There is an animal that's going to be sacrificed. So let's read down. Okay, overhead. Pompeii. Temple of Vespasian. Again, what you see here is the man specifically involved in the act of worship has a head covering. Right here. See, he got his head covered. So again, pagan ritual to have your head covered while performing a service to the Most High. Here's Augustus. We got anything else? I mean, that's all we need to see. What else we need to see? Now, what I want to show you here, in case, just in case, right here, this is a study by scholars at Yale. You see up here, Yale EDU, Yale Education. This is from Yale. Veiling among men in Roman Corinth. Now, I'm not going to read this, but you can look up the title. And this article by Yale University, it goes all into the capite velato ceremony. You know, here it mentions the Hellenist Greeks. So this was a pagan ritual again. So you can read this. Just look up the title. And then here we go, another one. From Cambridge, right? This one's from Cambridge. Men who wore veils to worship. The historical context of 1 Corinthians 11:4. And this is another scholar, Cambridge University, and he's breaking down why Paul said that because it was a pagan ritual. So you can read this, all right? So if that's not enough proof for you, then I don't know what is. Paul was alive. He was real. His writings are real. So when you read the writings, he wrote those things for a reason because those were the things going on. And those are the things still going on right now, as you can see. So let's read what Paul said, and then we'll close out on that. 1 Corinthians 11:4. Let's start at 1. Be ye followers of me, even as I also am of Yahweh Shai. So he starts off with this, meaning when Yahweh Shai prophesied, when he gave blessings, when he spoke, Yahweh Shai made sure his head was not covered. That's what he started off with. Be ye followers of me, even as I also of Yahweh Shai. Now I praise you, brethren, that ye remember me in all things and keep the ordinances as I delivered them to you. What's an ordinance? A commandment, law. But I would have you know that the head of every man is Yahweh Shai. So if Paul's writings are not correct, are not authoritative, are not to be trusted, that means his hierarchy here is incorrect. That means you believe the head of the man is not Yahweh Shai. But let's read on. It says, the head of every man is Yahweh Shai, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Yahweh Shai is the Most High Yahweh. Verse 4, every man praying or prophesying, having his head covered, dishonoreth his head. You dishonor yourself. But every woman that prayeth or prophesieth with her head uncovered, dishonoreth her head. For that is even all one as if she were shaven. Verse 7, for a man indeed ought to not cover his head, for as much as he is the image and the glory of the Most High. But the woman is the glory of the man. Now, what comes to mind is when John the Revelator saw Yahweh Shai in Revelation, the first chapter, he described him from head to toe. He did not describe Yahweh Shai as having his head covered at all. He described his girdle. He described the color of his garment. He described his skin color. But he did not say Yahweh Shai was wearing a hat or a cap. So that's it on that, man. Lord's will. This was edifying to you brothers and to your sisters. And now you fully understand why Paul put out the commandment, the ordinance, the law, to not pray or prophesy with your head covered. And with that, I'm going to say shalom. All praises to Yahweh. Ba'ashem Yahushua. Ba'ashem Kakadash. Shalom.